Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that tries to cut through all the noise and bring you insights from some really interesting sources. Today, we're going deep on something that kind of shapes our lives every day, maybe without us even noticing. It's the pull, the allure, and sometimes the hidden dangers of, well, modern life goals. Yeah, and this deep dive, it's based on some excerpts from a piece called The Peril of Life's Lures by Mark over at Knowledge is King. Our mission, really, is to unpack what Mark's arguing. Basically, why chasing the things society tells us equals success, the money, the fame, the stuff, why that might actually leave us feeling, well, empty, and what really makes us happy. It's a critical look at things we see constantly. So I guess the question is, have you ever felt like you're chasing something really hard, you get it, and then it's just not what you expected? If so, this conversation is definitely for you.
Absolutely, and it's such a timely topic. The source immediately brings up these big questions about, what society values versus what actually brings personal fulfillment. Mark's work really makes you stop and think why we want the things we want.
Totally. Okay, so let's start there. What exactly does Mark mean by life's lures? He talks about this race for success, fame, fortune.
Yeah, he paints a picture of it. It's those images, right? The ones we see everywhere, the quote-unquote perfect life, filled with luxury, fancy cars, big houses, all that material stuff.
And why are we so drawn to that? Why does it work on us?
Well, according to the source, it taps into something really fundamental about human nature. We're kind of wired to seek pleasure, satisfaction, comfort, security. It's basic.
Right.
And these lures, on the surface anyway, they promise all of that.
But the modern world, it seems like it just turns the volume way up on that attraction. The source mentions things like, flashy ads everywhere, social media influencers showing off these incredibly lavish lifestyles.
Exactly. And it's not just showing, it's often telling us, subtly or not so subtly, that we need more stuff to be happy, that this is the goal.
Okay, let's unpack that for a second. I mean, think about it. How many times have you seen an ad or maybe a post online and felt that little pull, that feeling of, if only I had that?
It's a powerful, and Mark argues that when we really fall for these lures, something shifts inside us.
How so?
We start prioritizing the material things, the external stuff, over things that are actually, essential for well-being, like our relationships, our health, our sort of inner peace.
So we get consumed by chasing wealth or status or power.
Yeah, and sometimes we don't even consciously realize we're making that trade-off. It just sort of happens.
And Mark makes this really crucial point and said, okay, maybe you get the thing you were chasing. You might briefly experience a sense of accomplishment or pleasure.
Right, that initial hit.
But he says it's often short-lived. That feeling fades really fast. Why is that?
This is where it gets really interesting psychologically. Mark basically says the lures are never enough. It doesn't matter how much you get. There's always going to be something else out there that promises even more happiness.
Oh, okay.
What's fascinating here is how the source highlights this constant treadmill effect.
Yeah.
The goalpost always seems to move further away just as you get close.
So it's like we adapt to the new thing really quickly.
Precisely. It's like that concept of hedonic adaptation. Our brains just get used to the new level of pleasure, that new car or bigger house, and then it becomes the new normal. The thrill wears off.
And then we're looking for the next hit.
Exactly. It creates what the source calls a never-ending cycle of chasing after the next big thing.
Wow. So if we're stuck on this treadmill, always chasing the next thing, what are we actually giving up? What's the real cost here? It sounds like there's a hidden trap.
Yeah, and Mark is pretty direct about the downsides. He argues these lures, they fundamentally distract us from what truly matters in life. Things like love, a sense of purpose, genuine personal growth.
Yeah.
When we're so focused on just getting more stuff, we end up neglecting the very things that bring real, lasting joy and fulfillment. He asks this really powerful question in the piece, like, if you have all the luxuries, but you don't have meaningful relationships or purpose,
Yeah.
what do we really have?
It hits hard. But, okay, let me push back slightly. Is Mark saying any ambition is bad? Or that wanting comfort or some level of success is wrong? Surely that can help create a good life. Does he touch on that?
That's a really good point. And no, it's not about condemning ambition itself. It's more about the over-prioritization. When chasing external markers becomes the only thing or the main thing,
Okay.
he warns it can lead down a dangerous path of greed and selfishness where our own wants just completely overshadow anyone else's needs.
And that damages relationships.
Absolutely. He says it causes strain and damage to our relationships with people we care about.
Yeah.
Connection gets neglected or maybe even exploited.
Wow. And what about, like, our own heads, our mental state?
That's another major cost. This constant need for more, the constant comparing ourselves to others, which, like we said, social media just throws fuel on that fire.
Right.
It can leave us feeling really empty, unfulfilled, anxious even, depressed. For some people, it can even feed into addiction.
So we lose touch with ourselves.
Yeah, Mark says we lose sight of who we are and what truly brings us joy when we're just consumed by this external chase.
Okay, so this is sounding pretty bleak. If chasing these lures is a trap, how do we get out? How do we break free? What's the advice here for, for you listening?
Well, the first big step, according to Mark, is a mental shift. It's recognizing that true happiness and fulfillment cannot be found in material possessions. Simple, but hard.
So stopping and thinking about it.
Exactly. And then actively shifting our focus from external validation, like what other people think, to internal growth and self-discovery.
This might mean redefining success for ourselves.
Precisely. Redefining what success looks like for you personally. Maybe finding joy and purpose in totally different places. Things that aren't just about acquiring more.
And it's not just something you do alone in your head, right? Mark talks about the importance of your environment, the people around you.
Oh, absolutely. That's key. He says we should try to surround ourselves with people who prioritize meaningful connections and personal growth over material possessions.
Kind of like building your own support system for these values.
Exactly. It's like creating an ecosystem that reinforces what truly matters. When you're around people who value genuine connection, shared experiences, learning, growing, it gives you the support and, frankly, the encouragement you need to resist that constant pull of materialism that's everywhere.
So connecting this to the bigger picture, it's really about being more intentional with our lives.
Yeah, living intentionally, moving past, just consuming without thinking, reevaluating what makes a life feel rich. Not rich in money, necessarily, but rich in well-being, in connection, in contentment.
Okay, so wrapping this up, this deep dive into Mark's The Peril of Life's Lures, it really brings home that core idea. This world was not designed for us to be possessed by its luxurious lures.
Yeah, he argues very strongly that these lures, they might promise a quick hit of happiness, something temporary.
Right.
But in the long run, they will only leave us with less than what we had before, empty and unfulfilled.
It feels like a real call to action then for all of us listening to try and, rise above these constant temptations and focus on what actually brings us real joy, deep fulfillment. And remembering, like Mark says, that true happiness, it's not really found in the stuff we own. It's found in the relationships we build, the people we connect with, and how we grow as individuals.
So maybe something to think about as you go about your day is this. If that hedonic adaptation thing is real, if the thrill of getting new stuff always fades, how could you maybe shift some energy away from that fleeting buzz of more towards the kind of lasting richness that comes from feeling you have enough and even beyond enough towards pursuing connection and growth? Just maybe consider what lures might be subtly pulling at you in your life and how could you start, maybe just slightly, rewriting that script?